Cal, can you hear us?
Yes, that is correct. All right.
Okay, let's try this again. That was a good practice time. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the sixth and final session of the ESD 113 Reopening Schools. This week, we've strived to provide information and an opportunity for you to talk among your peers about challenges we face in opening our schools and some strategies to address them. Making introductions, I'm Cal Brody, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Business and Operations for the ESD. Our genius behind the curtain is Shyla Kozlarich. She's our manager of the ESD Capital Events Center. She will be helping with the Zoom and the technical aspects. If you have technical questions, you can address those directly to her in the chat window, and she'll respond to as well. This afternoon, we've broken our time into two mini sessions. Starting now, we'll be doing transportation, and then later at 2:30, we'll be entering into the food service session. These sessions are structured around hearing from our expert practitioners, followed by an opportunity for each of you to meet with your peers in breakout room sessions and pick their brains and explore what you're doing and what you can learn in those sessions. So our agenda overview, and I'd say our suggested agenda overview is we're going to start at 1 o'clock, of course. We'll go into pupil transportation when I'm done here. We'll move into a breakout session for pupil transportation. We're trying to keep those groups small. There'll be 10 or 12 people, and we're going to do as a random poll, so you have an opportunity to meet with people you may not normally talk to and explore what you're all doing in this area. We'll reconvene at about 2:10. We'll do some share out of the breakout groups, and then we will break the pupil transportation session at 2:20. We'll have a 10-minute break for you to stretch your legs. At 2:30, we'll start up with school food services, and we have practitioner panel there. We'll do a breakout at 3:20. We'll try to reconvene at 3:45, go through that share out at the end, and hopefully have you out by 4 o'clock. So moving into transportation, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We will have John Sussman. He's Director of Transportation at the North Thurston Public Schools for just a few short weeks still. He will be retiring on July 1st. Replacing him will be Diane Maddox. She'll be moving into that big seat on July 1. She's currently the local chapter president for the Washington Association of Pupil Transportation. And I just want to cover some business and then we'll go into their piece. Mute your microphones, please. I need to give myself the note to unmute my microphone. As you see, I like to practice a lot before I actually start talking. If you have questions, please type them in the chat window. We will be monitoring the chat window. When we get to breakout rooms, please introduce yourself. You may be meeting with people you've never met before. It's nice to know who you're talking to. Please be present, show your video, and select someone in your group to report out when we come back as far as one major idea or major question you had coming out of that session. And with that, I will turn it over to John and Deanna. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. John Sussman. The next slide, Cal. So we were asked by Cal about 3 weeks ago to get a presentation together for reopening schools. And we have done a tremendous amount of research. You're gonna see that Deanna's reached out to the State Patrol and got direction in reference to modifications to school buses. We met with our health officer here in Thurston County, Dr. Deanna Yu, and for us with her, I just want you to know I've gone to Mount Weather with Dr. Yu. I've gone to Emmitsburg with Dr. Yu on week-long training classes. And her #1 message, if you're sitting at a table with her in class and you come back from a break, the first thing she's going to ask you is, did you wash your hands? So this message here is from her, and it is one of the ways to transfer COVID-19, and it is essential that we wash our hands frequently. Next slide. So in the reopening schools PowerPoint that was posted earlier this week, Superintendent of Public Instruction Chris Reichel says, to be very clear, it's my expectation the schools will open this fall for in-person instruction. To me, this slide is about servant followership. And followership to me is straightforward. It's a concept. It's our ability to take direction well, to get in line behind a program, to be part of a team and to deliver what's expected. This slide is missing a piece that the directors need to get us to the next level, and that is what you want the start of the school to look like. And I will be clear that once you know what that is, and once you give us what that direction is, the logistical people and transportation, not only throughout ESD 113, but across the state of Washington, are looking for that next step so they can get to work right away on routing the students to the specifications of which you ask. Next slide. Before we go any further, I have to tell you that student transportation is all about safety. It's student safety, it's bus driver safety, and it's public safety. Student transportation is the #1 safest mode of transportation in the world for getting students back and forth to school. And with that said, you're gonna either have ideas or have requests, and the rules, the WACs, the CFRs are so specific, and some of them we're not going to be able to have changed to try to reach expectations. And the reason for that is because we're different. When students step on a school bus, they become the school district's responsibility, the responsibility of that school bus driver. And it's not like public transportation where the driver of a public bus drives the bus. The driver of a school bus owns the child like a parent, and it has a duty of care from the minute the child steps onto the bus, actually from the minute we wave them across the street that we own them, and likewise on the return till they safely cross the street on the way home. Next slide. So I want to introduce Deanna a little bit more than what Cal did, and I just want to tell you that she first came through the door about 7 years ago here as her husband's an Army Ranger at Fort Lewis, and they moved here from Georgia, and Deanna came through to be a substitute bus driver for North Thurston Public Schools. She soon became one of our dispatchers. Deanna has been a school bus driver in Connecticut. She's been a school bus driver for a student transportation company in Georgia that had 400 school buses in their fleet. So she is part of a huge operation there. And then she has worked her way through the ranks here at North Thurston Public Schools to become the incoming Director of Transportation on July 1st. She's also currently the Washington Association of Pupil Transportation Capital Chapter President, where the directors of ESD 113 meet with her once a month and go over all sorts of topics, training, and do things that are beneficial to student transportation here in our ESD.
And I would like to share some information about John. He is currently our director here at North Thurston until the 30th. While he's very, very excited about his retirement, I am very sad to see him go. I have some enormous shoes to fill. He has been an incredible mentor, not just to me, but every other employee we have here at this district. And he's held that position currently for 7 years. He has been very actively involved in the Washington Association for Pupil Transportation, including president, and has volunteered for every committee that is out there. He actively goes and finds wonderful speakers and looks for ways to educate our transportation community. He also is a school bus driver, and I can tell you there is nobody more willing and eager to go and grab a set of keys and jump on one of our oldest buses in the fleet, that's his favorite, and get out there and pick up those students. But that's just a small piece of his life. He's had over 40 years of public service. He spent over 31 years as a Lacey police officer, and he did 2 years at the Washington, as a commander at Washington CJTC. He is a well-rounded and well-respected individual in this community, and I know that everybody's going to miss him as he moves on to his retirement. Next slide.
Thank you, Deanna. Next slide, sir. So I want to know, we did some research, and the research not only included OSPI, the transportation team at OSPI, the Washington State Patrol, our local health official, but we reached out to the directors in ESD, and we asked them, what are the top 10 things you would like the superintendents to know when we talk to them on Friday? And so, number 10.
Routing. Routing is very labor intensive and can take weeks to do. The sooner you can get your transportation on board and informed and they get a start on it, the better. What you may find is if transportation routes like they normally do, we're going to do it in the most efficient and logistical way possible. However, depending on the model that you're looking at to populate your schools and what days kids will attend, we may not be able to populate your schools based just on our efficiency and logistical portions. So it's very imperative that we work together as a team to try and make sure that we're populating the classrooms in the way that you have in mind. Number 9.
If a driver can't see, they cannot safely operate a school bus. And I'm telling you right now, the rules are saying that we're supposed to somehow have one of these either on our face or covering us up to ensure that it's just not going to be possible. And if you're wearing hearing aids like me, this stuff all gets caught up on it. A driver needs to drive a bus. With that said, Deanna's sent cordial communication to the governor's office to reconsider this particular piece while we're driving the bus. Not while we're accepting and unloading students, but while we're driving. We have a problem with this. Like I said, we're the #1 safest mode of transportation in the world, and covering our face with something, at this point, we're just asking, can we do this different? With that said, there's things in the works with that official request being made. Number 8.
The reasons why we can't take a student's temperature at a bus stop. The #1 reason is safety. There are WACs that specifically outline how a driver is supposed to execute a student stop. Between 200 and 500 feet before the stop, they have to activate their amber lights, letting all the traffic around them know that they're getting ready and preparing to stop. Once they reach that stopping point, they put their foot on the service brake. Once they do that, they activate their air brake when they're at that complete stop. They put their reds on. They're constantly reviewing all their mirrors to see if traffic has stopped and it's safe for children to move forward. The entire time they have to keep their foot remaining on that service brake. The driver cannot exit their seat and execute a proper student stop while loading these students. Not to mention, we all know what happens when people get impatient behind a school bus when they're stopped for long periods of time. Number 7.
So we can't make interior alterations to a school bus. And I know we've already heard that some of the public transits are going to cubitize their driver compartment with shields and things like that. Again, we have reached out to the experts in the field, including the captain of the Washington State Patrol Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Team. She has written back communication to Deanna, and Deanna has shared that communication out with the directors in ESD 113. The OSPI Transportation Director, Patty, has said we have no intentions of changing any of the school bus specs in WAC 392-143 or any of the RCWs. And I'll be honest with you, a school bus spec, the spec committees nationally meet every 5 years. It takes 5 years to implement a school bus spec. And so the thought that we're going to cubitize our driver's compartments like we have for our office professionals here is something we can't do. Number 6.
And because we're facing some of those restrictions, what we're asking for is a good parent education program for them to help educate the students. And by doing that, you'll be preparing the students to come to school. So health screening should start at home and before they even approach the bus stop. Number 5.
And with number 6 right there, just a little piece is we did have a Zoom meeting with Dr. Yu, and she helped us with a parent education community plan or communication plan. Now, we're not communication folks like we have over at our district office, but we're going to give you a slide today that has the 5 or 6 recommendations that the doctor makes that should be in that education plan. Number 5, each school district is different. And I see Raymond in the room right now. We're up here at North Thurston vastly different than Raymond. And transportation should be involved in decisions related to who and when and how people and how many people will ride the bus as soon as possible. And when I say as soon as possible, we're looking at July 1st next week. And normally, under normal situations and I would say Aberdeen, Hoquiam, Centralia, Chehalis, Yelm, North Thurston, Olympia, Tumwater. It takes all summer to route, to massage and fix and take care of the routes for opening school in September. And so whatever the plan is, we all need to know what opening school looks like soon. We met with STN, the Student Transportation News. It's a magazine that comes out to all the transportation directors every month. And we went over this conversation in reference to what does it look like and how soon do we need the information. And it's as soon as possible. Number 4.
One of the things that we are urging you to consider is that there's going to be a need for additional in-service training as the staff comes back to school this year. Now, normally there is a lot of training that everybody does at an in-service right before we go back. It's yearly reminders and additional teaching things that we can bring in. This year it's going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be a change for everybody. So we might suggest prioritizing and staggering your normal yearly trainings and focusing on some of those situations and the new criteria and the new guidelines that are going to be put into place for these drivers to give them the time to adjust and prepare as they're getting ready to go pick up the kids here in September. Number 3.
So we're concerned, number 3, we're concerned about our staffing and the needs and the protection of our staff and who's going to come back to work. And I'm sure you're all having that same consideration. We've sent out our letters and they're coming back. But we've been serving food since, helping food service, excuse me. We've been helping food service, our local heroes, deliver food to our community since the 13th of March. When everybody went home, it was food service that came back first, and then transportation. And I'll be honest with you, we have tried to mandate that everybody needs to do so many days of food service delivery. And we have as much as 10 of our 100 drivers we need, or 10%, that have underlying health problems and conditions that prevent them from coming back to work because of the risk at this time. And we're just concerned about that. And we wanted, and I'm not, when I say we, I mean this list came from the transportation directors in ESD 113. And we as a group are concerned about who's coming back and whether they're going to come back when we ask them to. Number 2.
OSPI is trying to make sure trying to leave as much of the responsibility to student transportation on a local level per district. And the reason for that is they completely understand that we're all so unique and we're all different. There is no one size fits all model. We have different processes, different procedures, and different district policies. And so they're leaving it up to us at this point to do what works for each individual district. Number 1.
If you're going to change bell times, or if that's what your number 1 consideration is, again, like some of the previous slides, transportation needs to know as soon as possible, because routing students is all logistics. And I'll tell you, the people who do the work with the software and the GIS and the mapping software and everything, they know what they're doing. And then they think about it for a day or two, and then they bounce it off each other, and they put together a beautiful plan that meets the efficiency standard and everything that we're looking for budgeting purposes. And so the sooner they know, or the sooner our folks know what it is you're asking for, the sooner we can get on it to, again, we're all followers. We're here to accomplish what you're asking for. We just need to know what it looks like so we can get that done. Next slide. Next slide, Cal.
I am trying. For some reason, I've paused my screen sharing. I don't know what that means.
Deanna, do you want to go into the transportation considerations?
Absolutely, he's got them up for us now.
Okay.
So one of the things that we started to focus on pretty much as soon as we shut down is what was it going to look like when we returned back, whether it was in April, May, or in September. And so we have jumped on every podcast, every webinar, every bus magazine that comes out, everything we could get our hands on. We've been collaborating with the local directors here in our ESD 113, other ESDs as well, OSPI, and pretty much these same top transportation considerations are the same across the entire United States. We are all looking for answers to all of these challenges. And the number 1 and 2 things that are always listed at the very top is staff and student safety, as well as bus equipment, bus stop safety, bus capacity, cleaning and sanitizing challenges, HR and labor issues, being compliant with all the rules and regulations that are set out for student transportation, what special education buses will look like, routing issues, our homeless and foster care students, driver recruitment and training policies, and personal protected equipment. Next slide.
This particular slide is about the safe transportation environment. And I'll wait for Cal to catch up with me here. Whoops, one too many, Cal. Can you go back one?
For some reason, I'm having a pause that show up, and I'm not sure how to control that. So
Okay. So let's do this one then, Deanna.
Okay, because we can touch back on that later.
okay.
So one of the things that is a huge concern amongst everybody that we're hearing is what are we going to do if there's an outbreak, whether it's an individual in the classroom or on a school bus. So we're asking the question, we know as a district plan, the very first and foremost thing that's going to happen is you're going to contact the health department who's going to launch the investigation. And Dr. Yu was very helpful in providing us information on how to conduct this slide. So we need to know, what do you need from us here in transportation? What information can we provide you to help figure out what the next steps are? Can we provide you with what driver was on the bus, what bus it was, what tiers, what schools they went to, student lists, where the students were seated on the bus? We know all those things are going to come up, and if you can help share with us what it is that we can provide you to help make this process easier for you, please do so. Next slide.
Can you go back one there? You want to go back one slide, Cal, or just move on? So this is a slide out of the OSPI back to school instruction manual, and it talks about health screening must be the responsibility of the parent. The ventilation to a safe bus is, having a safe bus is ventilation, which is easy for a driver to drop or crack windows as part of the pre-trip. We are going to talk about a slide here, the next one, and it's recommendations that Dr. Yu made that kind of tie everything on this safe transportation environment into one slide, and how we communicate to parents and students on how we want them to prepare to get on the bus, how we want them to load, and whether and how the face should be covered. And then this one in reference to the number of students per row and whatnot has been stricken from the list. I'll be honest with you, May 22nd, we had a great slide presentation, but then on June 2nd, the slide presentation changed. And then this last week, at the earlier part of this week, different things changed that actually made us remove slides, and because things are changing daily in reference to the rules, the regulations, and whatnot. So whatever happens, we should continue throughout the summer to pay close attention to L&I rules, to OSPI updates and messages out of OSPI in reference to transportation, and also what CDC has to say. Next slide. Actually, 2 slides up, if you would. So this is the initial basic slide we came up for parent and student education. And again, please understand, I am not a communication specialist like we have a whole team of over at our district office. But we sat down again in our Zoom meeting with Dr. Yu, and this is what we came out with to start. And like bus rules that we're working on now to go into handbook for next year, this is something that we're just saying, should be out there, because I can't take the temperature of a student. And I'm going to tell you what, a sick or symptomatic student is going to show up at the steps of a school bus. And we need to know that. I mean, we don't need to know that. It's going to happen. And we need to know what we're going to do if it happens. Wash your hands if you're a student before you leave for school. Parents, teach students how to wear the mask properly. Reinforce physical distancing at the school bus stop. And I know you're going to go right into the food service piece and where kids are going to eat and how far they need to be from them. And that's all part of it. Teach students not to touch the face. Dr. Yu is pretty clear about washing your hands, wearing your face mask, and social distances can stop COVID-19 from spreading and getting worse. Then basically those three things were the top things she kept reinforcing throughout the talk we had with her. Thurston Thrive through our health department has a walk to school, a ride to school, bike program. Olympia, Tumwater, and North Thurston just got a grant to redo our safe walk to school maps for all our elementaries. Those should be close to being done by September. I know Thurston's are being reviewed by the principals of the elementary schools now. So there's a lot of good work going behind the scenes in reference to these walk zones and whatnot. And then she recommended when you get on the school bus to teach our students, instead of looking at the driver, put a red dot over to the left and then have students look to the dot as they pass. And then she talked a lot about first students on go to the back of the bus and we load from the back forward. When we unload at school, it's from the front unloads and nobody crosses and pass like we have happening now. These were just all good recommendations she was making in reference to the way we should conduct ourselves and then this education program, not only for parents and students, but our drivers as well. Next slide. So I'm just asking, at 3:30 in the morning, the transportation directors hit the road to go out and see what a snow day looks like. And by 4 in the morning, from Centralia to Shelton, to Olympia, Lacey, North Thurston, Yelm, we're all texting each other. We got a close-knit group of transportation, Griffin. We are all texting one another saying, this is what I got. Our McKinney-Vento is in 5 separate counties. I'm sure you have the same thing. You're not just in your local school district area where you're going out and picking up kids. All we're asking is there any way we can all do the same thing, like a snow day? We try, when I get my message over to Monty, my assistant superintendent, is then calling Olympia, Yelm, and Tumwater to see if there's any way whatever we do today for a cancellation or a late start is somewhat the same. And we're just saying, is there any possible way, whatever we do, if it could be similar? Next slide.
Before I hit onto this slide, I would like to add, and part of that reason why we do that collaboration is because we are all connected. When it comes to our McKinney-Vento and our homeless students, our McKinney-Vento and our foster care students, we're constantly crossing boundary lines and we're going into these other neighboring districts. And nobody knows those roads and the safety in the current conditions as well as the actual district themselves. And so when we have this obligation to transport these students, we share that obligation. And so when we stay in touch and we stay on similar patterns, it helps us to provide the services to these students and remove barriers that we're expected to provide. So let's talk about routing again some more. Routing is very complex, labor intensive. They are truly your experts. They will amaze you at the things that they can come up with. Now, there are districts that have software that helps with this process, and there's also districts out there who don't. There are some districts who have not rerouted routes in 10 years. So the models that are being suggested and people are looking at now, if they're considering any type of social distancing on a bus or altered bell times or split drop-offs or any type of change, even with a software, you're asking the software to do something that it doesn't normally do. Most softwares have an automatic download process where it comes out of your student information system, and at least for general education, it will auto-place those students. Now we're going to go in and we're going to ask the system to do something completely different. And so it almost becomes for regular education students like special ed individual one-on-one, because we may be looking at what students go on what days, what times. There's all these different scenarios that have to be looked at. And if you can get this information over to your dispatch team, your router team, your transportation directors, they're able to start looking at these scenarios before you make a recommendation, before you make a plan. And they can look at it and they can see if it's feasible, or they can project what a bump in the road might be. And they can review it, adjust it, and give you additional feedback to help support you in making the decision that is best for your district. One thing we also should consider is what will be your plan. WAC 392-145 says we're not allowed to leave a student at a bus stop. And this is gonna happen. We're gonna have scenarios where mom thinks it's Tuesday and it's really Wednesday, and Tuesday is the day her student's supposed to go, and guess who's gonna be at the bus stop? It's gonna be little Johnny, who is supposed to go on Wednesday and not Tuesdays. So we're gonna have to transport that student. So what types of plan are you gonna have in place for students who end up at school and it's not their assigned day? Also, one of the concerns that we've been tossing around is what happens when the student is at the bus stop, and before you even open your bus stop doors, you notice that their cheeks are flushed and there's nasal discharge coming down, and obviously the student is not feeling very well at all. Again, we cannot leave the student at the stop. So at that point, would you have the bus stay and call for maybe an administrator to come pick them up in another vehicle? And once they're in that vehicle, do you take them to the transportation department? Do you take them back to school where they can be evaluated by the nurse and you can try and get in contact with the parent? And the reason that we put this on here is because it's something that happens to us on a normal basis. Anytime our kindergartners must be met, and when there's a parent not home, they end up back at transportation. When we have a early release day, we have them just about every other Wednesday, and we end up with about 30 to 40 kindergartners back at our location. We become a daycare center, and we have to get in contact with the parents. We're all human, and these things happen, and we have to make a plan, especially for now with these COVID circumstances, and it's uncharted territory for all of us. If you could
I can't believe you stole my daycare issue there, Maddox. Holy smokes.
Well, you've been hogging the slides, so I need to get my 2 cents in, right?
All right.
So one of the last things we would like to say on this piece is if you could provide your transportation directors with your top scenarios, the plans that you think that you would like to employ, and let them look at them, give them a couple of days, let them sort it all out, and they will be able to let you know how quickly they can make it happen, or anything that they see as a challenge, and they can help support you. Truly, they are the experts at this, and they have these incredible this brain power that, you know, we joke around sometimes that it's a giant game of Tetris complete with all the little bombs. But these people truly have logistical mindsets that are amazing. So please rely on them and let them support you. Next slide.
So one of the things we were asked is, can we add drivers and buy more buses? And truly my belief is there'll be a vaccine before I can get a bus delivered. We just placed an order for some buses that I thought we were gonna get in December. This was a purchase order that was given to us on Monday. The vendor saying it might be February. So the assumption that we can add buses or hire more substitute bus drivers to fix whatever the plan is, yeah, we can hire more people if there's people who actually apply and then pass the fingerprint test and then pass the drug test and then pass all the rest of the certifications that get put upon a transportation specialist. And I'm already worried that we're not going to have enough subs to cover what that 10% loss of individuals might be if circumstances don't change and a person in their 60s is still a high-risk individual based upon their health conditions. So just a little more information to please take into consideration. Next slide. So
the National Transportation Association has pretty much across the board gathered these topics that are the same for everybody across the United States. And so some of the suggestions they have nationwide are, could you expand your walk zones? Can you require student registration for bus service? And while this is going to be labor intensive, it's also going to give you a clearer picture of who is going to actually utilize the transportation service. So if you're asking parents to try and transport more or asking students to walk, or if you even see a drop in student enrollment because people would prefer to do online, this would help your transportation department be able to accurately provide you data and to plan these routes. Encourage walking and biking to school. Partnership with your local public transit. Are you prepared for added parent drop off and pickup? Congested parking lots are always a challenge, and they're only going to become more challenging. And do you have staff available if you're looking at alternate bell times or alternate drop-off locations at each school to have your staff in place to accept the students earlier or later in the day for staggered bell times? Next slide.
So, hey, Cal, how do you want to go about this? And then we got a slide in reference to the topics of consideration, and then a document that Deanna has put together that I think people would find extremely helpful prior to the breakout session.
Great. If folks have chat or any questions, they can put into the chat line. I haven't seen any questions come up yet related to the presentation. I do want to apologize. I am not the most proficient at this. I'm finding out there's new ways to mess this up I didn't know I could do, and I'm struggling trying to get the presenter view up there. So I'll continue trying to do that. Any questions? We'll give you a moment or two to get into the chat.
What I'm seeing in chat, Cal, is people are asking for the slideshow. And
Okay.
so, yes, we want to give you the slideshow, and we also want to make sure this document that Deanna put together, it's 7 or 8 pages in length with at least a page full of resources that, I mean, that girl has, if she deserves a master's degree in her work that she's put together for this presentation, because she's worked solid straight on it for 3 weeks, and I'm just blown away at the document that she's put together. There's every question you could ask on that sheet of paper.
Okay. So if you give me just a moment, I'll adjust to this and get that document out there.
And then finally, one last plug that I would like to just recap, and that is I've worked very closely with your transportation directors in the ESD over the last 7 years. They're the finest people I've ever worked with. They get it, but we're all sitting here going, what is September supposed to look like? A normal startup, we know how to do that. A shutdown on March 13th, we did it. We were able to shut her down and send people home. That wasn't hard. But what we're hearing in reference to the various different scenarios and whatnot, that's going to take time to accomplish. And one would think, oh, it's fewer kids on the bus. You should be able to get that standing on your head. Like Deanna said, our software doesn't do it that way. Doesn't split kids up alphabetically and then you have students all living in the same house with different last names, and it's going to take some work to pull it off. So the sooner we know what the expectation is, as that we said, we're being told school will start in September, but I know you don't. It's not going to be the way it was last September 9 in 2019. So the sooner we can know, the better. And I don't mean to pound that down, and you've heard it multiple times, but truly it's going to take some time to accomplish what you're asking for. And I know that the directors in this ESD 113 will get her done.
So I see a couple of questions that have come up in the chat box, and one is asking if there's any suggestions for transporting students that are showing symptoms after arriving at school. So in the one slide that we went back to, which came out from OSPI, they did recommend that students, if they are showing symptoms and being tested, that they are parent pickup and we don't put them back on a bus and spread the possible contamination. But that would still be up to an individual district decision. And there's also a question on if we'll be covering sanitizing buses. So there'll be a little bit more on that in the document. However, I would like to advise that we have had a challenge, excuse me, in finding an appropriate cleaner on our buses. And part of that is, again, our regulations. We're not allowed to have anything on the bus that's flammable. Some of the recommended cleaners are at healthcare facilities, and they're very hard to come by. Some of the products, we're being told by vendors, are on back order. So it's very important to work with your current district and in with your custodial departments and find out what your regulations are and what your district policies are on what they're going to allow, as well as your bus manufacturers. There's certain cleaners that you can't use on the materials, or you will wear out the seats, the seat belts, and the different components on the bus. I have sent out some documentation regarding the manufacturer's recommendations for cleaners to all the directors, and if need be, I can provide it if anybody wants to contact me again after this meeting. So in the chat box, you will notice there is a Word document. If you could download that and pull it up on your computer, it's about 10 pages, and Cal told me it ends up being about 130 questions and considerations for you to review. And the purpose of this document is to get you having those conversations, both in this breakout session and with your transportation directors. It's going to address some of the issues or concerns or ideas that you've already thought about, and then it's going to raise new ones as well. And so some of the topics they're listed here for you in this slide, the topics that it covers, and then underneath each of those headings, there are additional questions that go into that. So Cal, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Great.
In reference to the cleaning supplies, there should be a link on, and I think it's the last slide of this PowerPoint, in reference to references, and the California Reopening School plan is one of those, and in that is a link to 45 pages of cleaners and how long it takes it to either kills coronavirus 19 or it doesn't, and then it's a liquid, it's a spray, or it's a wipe. And that's a great document. And we've had one of our employees on the phone trying to find some of the wipes that kill the virus within 30 seconds and would meet the MSDSs and whatnot, so we could actually have it in the schools. So there's things out there. Again, the link through this California plan has 45 pages of cleaners that you can consider.
Okay. So Shiloh, are you ready to move to breakouts? If so, I'll go through my slides here.
No, we're all set.
Okay. So I just have 2 slides to go through. You're going to be directed to breakout rooms shortly. The group size should be 10 or 12 people. Deanna had presented her list of questions if you want to use that. If you want to do more broader questions, you can just ask some simple questions. Are you going to open as normal in September? Are you prepared to do that? If you're doing it in some other modified fashion, what are you doing to address the transportation needs? What questions do you have to come back to share for our transportation directors in our region? And do you have specific questions that John and Deanna can receive and bring them back to the regional transportation group and work with them? This will be our 6th time this week that we're doing breakout sessions. Just what we've discovered is sometimes you get in groups with people you don't know. So I ask you each to kind of get into your extroverted side, introduce yourselves, tell people who you are and where you're from. Ask questions, initiate conversations, be curious. You have some great resources in every breakout room if you can just reach out to them, start talking to them. Learn from the other people in the room. And please be present, show your video. At least what I've seen so far, everybody's been pretty good about that. So with that, the last piece is we will reconvene. We're scheduled to reconvene at 2:10, which will give about 20 minutes. Maybe we'll push it out to about 2:15. And when you come back, have somebody from your group willing to share one key thing you discussed or one important question you want to bring back to the group. And with that, Shiloh, let's go to breakout.
Alrighty, we'll see you all soon.
How to do that.
I think the announcement was a little premature.
Cal, how are you going to want us to break or share from our breakout rooms?
Just making sure I'm unmuted. So hopefully you all paid attention to the number of your breakout room. Otherwise, we'll kind of do as a random pull. Let's try the numbering system first. So from breakout room 1, what did you learn? What questions did you come out with that? And we have a bet to see whether we can stump Deanna for questions. Breakout room 1?
No, I don't think any, I never saw a number.
Okay, so let's do random. Heather, you spoke up first. Do you have something to share with the group?
And I made sure I knew my number before we started, Cal. We're breakout room 11.
Okay.
So we talked about what do you do when a student gets on the bus and they're obviously sick and there's not a parent standing there. That is a huge concern because you can't leave them at the bus stop. So we just know that we need to be thinking about that. We talked about staggered start times, but then we also got into the logistics that go beyond transportation. And what do you do about your MOU when high school kids basically monitor themselves in the morning, but elementary kids need to be watched? And if you can't put them in a common area and need to send them off into classrooms and spaces where they have to be set apart, how are we going to supervise those students without additional personnel or violating WAC time? So that's kind of what our conversation was about.
And John, there's a lot of questions. John and Stan, that's a lot of questions. Is there anything you want to address in that? Or should we move on to the next one? They may be just rhetorical questions because we're all struggling with some of this stuff.
I think we knew that they were rhetorical.
Okay. I think Deanna's passing on that one. Okay.
Yeah, that part of it isn't really a transportation question on once they get into the building.
Cal, I'll go next.
Yep.
We really just kind of shared with each other about all the aspects of, how transportation relates to everything else. So if you don't do wellness checks on the bus, then how are you going to do it when you get to school? We in Elma, we don't have any way, we've never made a plan for what would happen if a student showed up at the bus stop with an illness, because we weren't planning on having the bus driver do that check anyway. So we just kind of talked about how the whole process works together. If you have 70 students and it's a 2-hour bus ride, then maybe your board is not going to be terribly excited about that. So you're going to have to make an adjustment to how that particular bus route works. And it's sort of the same thing as if you have one school that can't accommodate all the students on that same day, then you're going to have to look at an A/B schedule. And it's really similar with transportation. Whatever part of your system can't handle a certain number of students, then you have to sort of back up and rethink it. And maybe somebody else from the group, if you guys had a question, because we didn't quite get to that piece.
Twice. Okay. I'm going to read a question from the chat room, and I'm going to share what I know about it and offer Deanna a chance as well. The question is, should a para ride the bus and do the wellness checks at each stop? If you had attended the session this morning with our nurse, Lynn Nelson, she'll tell you that the temperature thing is problematic. When kids are coming in from the outside, it takes about 15 minutes once they come inside before you actually can get an accurate reading. So when we talk about that wellness check, it seems like it's going to be a family that does a well check for the kids, and when the kids come on board. And as far as whether you have a para ride on the bus, that's going to be a district by district decision. And in John's case, he would have to have about 140 paras ride his buses. And that's a significant financial piece. And the question the district has to decide is, what does the community expect? And do they think there's a value in doing that? So it's really going to be a local district. Does anybody with deeper knowledge have anything more to add to that?
I'll jump in, Cal. We talked about that it's probably not realistic to have our bus drivers do a lot of the screening or any of the screening. Chris Rakedahl has talked a lot about parent attestations, and that has to be I'll just speak for Yelm in this conversation, that's got to be in Skyward. And I hope that we get some examples of how parents can communicate that they're sending healthy kids to school and saying that I'm not sending them to school with illnesses, that kind of thing. We also believe that there's going to need to be significant simulation with our drivers in two areas. One is communication between school and home. If there is a kid that's sick, or if kids going on the wrong day or anything like that. But there's also a lot of talk about different ways of seating kids as you add students to the bus. That all has to be simulated and practiced and communicated, encouraging kids who may not want to have the mask on that morning that life is going to be okay and be healthier. We talked a lot about, we like some of the information from this morning that maybe there's not as much fear in surface to person spread, so that we can still be very good at cleaning, but not have to be overly rambunctious about that. That may not be the right term. So, but really that communication, increased communication between bus driver, parent, school is really what will make this work.
Cal, I'll just elaborate on that piece about the para on the bus. In addition, we also need to keep in mind that if we were to have somebody to do wellness checks depending on what model a district chooses to do, social distancing or no social distancing at a bus stop, even before those kids get on the bus, you have to take in mind that amount of time you're stopped at a bus stop and the amount of time that's going to add to your routes to do some type of wellness check on these kids. And not to mention, you're going to have very impatient drivers behind you that could pose as a safety risk if they get tired of waiting and try and run those red lights.
One of the things that was brought up in our group was that, you know, if we're going to have to go to the mask situation, which it appears we are, is maybe some preemptive education, maybe sending masks home so people can practice. I mean, wearing the masks. It's kind of a big undertaking, but we kind of figured out that there's going to be that population that says my kids aren't wearing masks, or there's kids that just can't wear masks because they don't want to. I mean, you know, whatever. But maybe some education ahead of time with the families and the kids to hopefully, I guess, lessen the burden, I guess. I don't know.
Great point, Greg.
Well, Greg, in addition to that point you made, just to shed some additional light on it, you were just saying that, you know, about the kids that don't want to wear those masks that day. You know, in some of the provisions, it says that, you know, if there's underlying health conditions or they can't adjust the mask properly, or their doctor says that they don't have to wear one because maybe they have asthma or other breathing issues, how is the driver going to know that there is a logical and approved reason for that student not to wear a mask when they get on the bus versus a student who just is choosing not to?
I know in a meeting earlier this week, there was a talking a lot about whether the bus drivers would be, if it's a good idea if they take temp checks and everything. And it was really pushed to educate the parents and really get the parents involved in that, and educating the parents in getting them involved and teaching them about the bus ride and how important it is for them to assess their student and the temp check before the child gets to the bus, because yes, that there's that time frame of being outside and then taking a temp check, or eating and taking a temp check, where you won't get an accurate temp read. And so it is, you know, as per each district chooses, but it was strongly suggested that the bus drivers do not take the temp checks because of all of the safety measures at stops, and depending on if it's on a highway stop or, you know, how many students at that stop and time, like you've said before. So just really educating and getting the parents involved in that, and proper hygiene, and making sure their children are clean as best as they can, and things like that.
We have another group that'd like to share out what they did in the breakout. Anything came out of it?
If I could, Deanna, this isn't so, hi Deanna, it's not, and John, it's not so much a question, but one thing that that would probably, if we even back up before this, is I know the districts are putting surveys out. And one thing that I think is very important with surveys, because they're wanting to know if kids are coming back to school, if they're going to distance learn, if they're going to homeschool. One of the breakout sessions I was in last night for Aberdeen, there was a parent there, and they say, well, it depends on what the school's going to do to determine whether, you know, we're going to send their kid back to school or not. But I think in that survey that goes out, it would be advantageous to ask if their child needs transportation, and if they do, if it's not available on certain days because of sickness, do they have the ability to transport their kids on their own if we're not able to do that? So I just wanted to add that little piece there too. I think that's very, very important to put that into the survey.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Cal, I saw a chat question that went in there about the space, and we didn't cover it in our presentation, but there are recommendations in reference to the driver safety about keeping the first couple of rows behind the driver free from any students being transported in those seats, just to give that social distance for driver safety. And there was a question in reference to that, and there was a school district that said that's what they're doing. And truly that is what we're looking at here as we start preparing for back to school. And that is, how do we create that distance, that safe distance, so the driver is safe as well as the students.
Okay, we're just about at the end of our time. Any last questions or comments from the group?
And can I just say thank you to Ernie for his comments, because that piece, we all assume everybody has a car and can get to school. And what we've learned here in transportation, and why we were asked to help food service since the 13th of March, and that is, there are people that can't get to school to get the free lunch every day. And that's why we started delivering food out into the community, is because there truly are people in the community that rely on the school bus to get their child back and forth to school. And so by just saying you can't come, or that we're somehow cutting you off from the service because we assume you can get there, it's not a very safe assumption to make. And we've come across it over the years here, is that there are folks, and we get asked, don't do a 5-day suspension, do 1 suspension, because if you kick that kid off the bus for 5 days, he'll never come back to school again. So do one suspension 5 days in a row instead of 1 5-day suspension. Just little tips that we've been taught, because there are people that absolutely rely on transportation to get back and forth to school. They don't have it of their own, and they're outside that 1 or 2 mile walk zone as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so within the packet, and that was dropped into the chat line for you, are a number of references that Deanne and John pulled together for you to go farther. And I want to thank John and Deanne for all the time they spent in getting ready for this, and just doing a wonderful job of presenting today. We will be transitioning to food service. We had originally planned it for a 10-minute break. Let's try to do a 5-minute break and come back in 5 minutes, and we'll get started up with food service next. So,
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
and remember, wash your hands.
Bye, Greg.
We'll get started here in just about a minute.
Cal, how are you holding up?
I will be happy when it's 4:05, 4:10, whenever we finish up here. Started here. This next session now, we're going to go into our food service area. If I can make this thing work. Really? There we go. Let's try that. So our format for this afternoon for the food service is we have a practitioners panel. And I want to thank Sandy Conradi from Yelms Community Schools, Paul Flock from Olympia, Alicia Neal from North Thurston Public Schools, and Bob Gibson, the Bob Gibson from Tumwater School District. And then after that panel, we'll also have Liz Beechler from OSPI join us. The topics, it's kind of strange to do a panel on Zoom. So the way we decided to do this is each one of them has a topic to deal with. The first one will be providing breakfast and lunch in the classroom with a focus on the elementary side. Second will be food service for middle and secondary schools. Third one is provisioning food for the remote learners. And then Bob's going to come in as the Zamboni of the panelist and give us a big picture on what the food service program needs are. We can do questions through the chat throughout these, and we'll try to get those to the presenters. And that is our recommended time, but already we're 5-10 minutes behind, so we'll keep going. And with that, I will turn it over to Sandy and let her start with her presentation or her conversation.
Good afternoon. I'm Sandy Conradi, Food Service Director for Yelm Community Schools. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about elementary feeding, basically in the classroom is what we're going to kind of focus on. I guess I got kind of lucky with that one because it's a little bit easier than the other ones. With the breakfast after the bell model, if we kind of look at that and follow that, we can kind of do classroom feeding fairly easy. We still have a lot of concerns. OSPI resources are, written out there. Reach out to your program specialist. They can help with some tips on that. Other districts that have done breakfast after the bell, share concerns or needs with them. One good thing with the elementary is that we're not required to do the offer versus serve like at a secondary school. So we have a little bit more leeway with them, but we still want to be able to offer a bunch of choices to them. So, I mean, that all seems pretty simple, but we have a lot of challenges that we're coming across right now because we are going to look at that each of our schools in our district may not even serve the same exact way. So I may have one school that may deliver everything into the classrooms, but maybe another one, they come and pick up and take back to the classroom. So that's going to make some differences just within my own elementary schools. Do we have inside access to all classrooms? Are we impacted by elevator, stairs, or weather when we're delivering? How about help? Are we going to have enough help to make this go? Who's going to pick up the slack? Are we going to need teacher help, para help? And who's going to support those additional labor costs for us? Will we have too much help? Are we looking at possible layoffs? How do we accommodate cleaning, sanitizing our equipment between services? If we are transporting to the classroom on a rotating basis, to save money, we're going to reuse those carts. They've got to be sanitized in between before taking them to another classroom. Equipment needs. Are we going to use Cambros, other insulated boxes to transport in? What about additional remote serving lines? Do we have time to bring in the additional equipment? The availability of additional equipment, is it 6 to 8 weeks? Are they on back order? And if so, what do we do in the meantime on serving the kids? How do we make that happen? Who's going to pay for that equipment for us? Do we have funding options available? We're going to have additional costs, paper products, disposables. If we're not using the cafeteria, it's going to be harder to use reusable trays. You're going to have to go to more paper and prepackaged items. And then what's the availability of prepackaged items? We all know that the last several weeks we've had a hard time getting a hold of items that we need, so we've had to be creative. Are you going to package your own on site? And then if so, what equipment is needed for that also? You're going to have extra costs in our bags, portion cups. And then are we looking at labor versus pre-portioned? Is it going to be cheaper to buy the pre-portion, or is it cheaper for us to use our own labor to then portion it ourselves? One of the big items here is, how do we keep our participation up? Our program survives on reimbursable meals, and we need to be creative to keep those meals up. We don't want to serve cold sandwiches every day. How do we serve turkey gravy still, spaghetti, you know? What kind of containers do we need to be able to package that stuff in to be able to serve? Extra trash in the classroom. We know custodial does not like blueberries, whether they're going to be in the classroom or they're going to be in the cafeteria. So come to a happy medium with custodial, you know, see what we can work out. We've got to be talking to them too, and you know, come up with some ideas. And then how do we still meet our OSPI and USDA regulations? Will we get waivers granted? And if so, what waivers do we even need? For example, if a school is going to serve every other day model, kids are here one day, they're out the next day, do we get to send a sack lunch home with them that day so they have food for the next day, like what we've been doing right now on our remote feeding? And how do we implement all of this with the new CDC guidelines? Everything that we've listed here is all unknown until we receive a teaching model. So we're really dependent on that teaching model being finished and knowing what days these kids are going to school, what times they're going to school. And we need time to prepare for all of that. We've been able to pull off some miracles pretty quickly in the last few weeks, but we still need some time to prepare. So.
I would take the liberty of asking a question, if I may. We had earlier today, when we talked with Superintendent Reichel this morning, he talked about holding classes in the cafeteria and some of the more public places. And yet, when I've kind of tried to follow some of the conversations, kitchens aren't necessarily set up to have 6-foot distancing between staff. So people have suggested that maybe some of the operations you do in the kitchen could be moved into, guess where? The gym, or somewhere else that's more of a public space, where maybe you can do food prep or chop, that you don't need the big, large equipment. Do you see your food service areas being able to accommodate distancing, or how are you thinking about adjusting that?
Right now, I mean, it's kind of, there's a bunch of different options there too, if we've got the space. Some of our cafeterias are small, so they're compact. So how do you spread that out? And then how many kids can you put at a table? Do we need to put barriers in between, like plexiglass, to kind of keep them separated? So there's all those differences there too. And then how often are we bringing kids in, you know, to pull them in and out? You know, all the new regulations went in that we're trying to meet the 20-minute lunchtime and all that kind of stuff. All of that stuff is going to end up probably going by the wayside right now, so we can figure out how to make this work and keep everybody separated.
And Cal, I think it depends largely, you know, from school to school. This summer, in our food service department, we did staggered scheduling so that, you know, half of our staff were coming in early and the other staff were coming in the afternoon. And maybe there's some potential there for, you know, we're going to have 2 different models of feeding students, our in-district learners and our remote learners, and maybe meal prep could potentially be also separated out into timeframes to help allow for better social distancing.
Hi, this is Liz. Can I chime in on something?
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that around the alternate staff schedules, the DOH, the Department of Health, is actually recommending that right now in case there is some sort of outbreak in your school, that not everyone is not, you know, taken out, so there can be some sort of backup plan for staffing. I'll talk more about that when I talk around what DOH has recommended, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything in chat line, so what we'll do is we'll move on to our next speaker, which is now Paul, dealing with food service in secondary schools.
Yeah, hello, Paul Flack, Olympia School District. Before I kind of get into some ideas for the secondary schools, I just want to mention to some of the folks out there, we have very progressive lunch programs in this area. We have salad bars in all our schools. In fact, when I go out to my salad bars, I'll mention to the staff, you have the best looking salad bar in town. And I mean it, they're just wonderful. And we use local grown produce from farmers and from our school gardens. And many of us have also taken an environmental approach to what we do. We eliminated stuff that gets tossed as much as we can. We use, before the pandemic, washable trays and silverware. We listen to our community regarding styrofoam. We ban styrofoam. We don't use that. But all that is gone away because of the pandemic. So, and we are going to focus on food safety, number one. So, and we might even, ask the question, perhaps we should introduce styrofoam back into our schools because that's a safe item or packaging, especially if we're going to be offering grab and go hot items. So I just want to put that out there that things are changing that way. Sandy mentioned the budget constraint, and we're not part of the state funding formula for the schools. School districts have. We have to fend for ourselves. We have to generate enough revenue to cover our costs, and that's based on the meals that we serve. And I think we can anticipate our meals are drastically going to go down. So we're going to have to make some difficult staffing cuts. And that's why, again, I'm going to emphasize, everybody's been beating this to death, that we need the information as soon as possible because we have folks out there who need this information. So perhaps they know that they won't have a job this fall, that they can take action to look for other work or whatever. So they really need that information. I've had people approach me about this, Paul, what's going to happen? And I said, I don't have a crystal ball, but if I were you. So anyway, that's just a couple of other things. So I'm going to talk about the secondary schools, middle schools and high schools. And before I do that, I just want to share with you, my colleagues, I asked the question, are you seeing very many secondary students at your emergency feeding sites? And we all said, no, not very, very, very few. So the secondary students, middle school, high school, they're getting their meals somewhere, but they're not coming to our emergency feeding sites. So as far as what we're going to do at the high school, obviously we're going to probably all use the KISS method. Keep it simple, Paul. Because what I'm looking at, I'm envisioning at the middle school and high school, it's going to be like every day is going to be a half day, which half days during the school year really impacted our lunch programs, that we had very few students who showed up because they were dismissed before lunch. They could go to lunch if they wanted to, but majority chose not to. So, and again, so that's going to be, I think financial impacts are going to be great at our secondary schools. So some options, and one I'm going to throw out the safest. Again, we're going to emphasize food safety. The safest one would be to have students bring their own meals. But darn well, school boards aren't going to go for that. So we're going to have to provide alternatives. So what can we do? One we could do is online ordering. We did this at the Olympia School District a couple of years ago at an alternative high school, and it was fairly successful. We give the students maybe 4 or 5 lunch options. They'd have to order the night before, and we'd get the information when we report to work in the morning, and then we would send those meals out to the site. So that'd be a very, very safe option. And you do realize a lot of students, either don't have a computer to do the online ordering, or they just forget. So we took that into consideration too. So if we got 100 kids who ordered online, we'd send 25 more, because we know 25 more kids would want lunch who didn't do the online ordering. So another way we could do it, and it depends upon, again, we have to find out what what it looks like at our schools as far as the schedule. We can do prepackaged meals. I think we just need to keep the students, be able to offer them a complete meal and keep the social distancing. And we just can't have hot food lines anymore. So, so everything is going to have to be in a prepackaged container, and we'll have to figure out logistics once we get information from the schools, how the students will pick them up. Then, of course, we have at Olympia High School, before the pandemic, we had 2,000 adults and students in our schools at one time. So, so when we come back in September, we're going to have some in the school, probably a couple of hundred, and there's going to be many, doing online classes. So perhaps we're going to have to continue with a curbside meal service for the students who aren't at school in the building. So they can come up and we can provide curbside service like we're doing now in emergency feeding programs. But then would have to have some type of program for the students who are being housed in school. So we'd have to have two things going on. So, and I just kind of, we'll just need the information and we'll make it happen, as the transportation folks indicated too. But so I told my colleagues this morning, we met before to discuss what we're going to do this afternoon. And I said, our goal is to perhaps have turkey gravy by November. So I think that would be our goal.
I didn't see any questions in the chat for you, Paul, so we're going to move on to Alicia, and her topic is providing food for the remote learners.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Neal, and I'm the Director of Food Service at North Thurston Public Schools. And I'm just going to share some of the considerations I'm starting to think about for remote learners. And I think I should probably start by recognizing that most schools have 3 months of experience in feeding remote learners, and that we made that change very quickly. Literally over a weekend, most of us went from doing our traditional service to a curbside grab and go take home model. Many districts also started serving, working with their transportation departments and serving meals out of buses, and also some districts went as far as to prepare and provide multiple days worth of meals to send home with families. I think the important thing to consider and to note is that that was all made possible because we switched from our National School Lunch Program to the Summer Food Service Program. That it's a completely different program with different rules and regulations. It was also made possible through multiple USDA waivers that allowed flexibility for us to provide everyone free meals at all of our sites. It allowed students to take meals off site, which is usually not allowable. It allowed for us to provide multiple meals to be taken home at one time, and for parents and guardians to pick up meals on behalf of our students. So these are all waivers that under normal circumstances we would not be allowed to do. When I think about reopening school for next year, unfortunately, I have more questions than answers at this point. I know you guys have heard this many times, but decisions about how we will provide meals will be based largely on the instructional model that districts go with, and further guidance from USDA. And at this point, we don't have that guidance yet. We don't know whether we're going to be offering the National School Lunch Program or the Summer Food Service Program, or maybe a combination of both. And what waivers are going to be applied to give us that flexibility that we need. But what we do know is that if your district adopts any type of split schedule, there will be remote learners who need food, and our job is to find a way to feed those students. And I've been kind of bouncing around a couple of different options in my head, two that come to mind, but I know that there's a lot of creative minds out there that are probably thinking about options too. But you know, the two models that come to mind for me would be a curbside pickup model, which is what we're currently doing. And this is all, of course, dependent on what kind of waivers we have to work with next year. Or a send home model where at the end of the school day, students are given a meal to take home for the days that they're doing their remote learning. So there are obviously different considerations for both of these models. When I look at the curbside pickup model, you know, we need to be really working closely with principals about where and when pickups would be scheduled, who would be handing out these meals, and then the menu and food safety considerations. One thing I would ask for you know, teachers, principals, you know, everyone who's working in our schools right now, to know and to be patient with us, because you know, the food supply chain has been very unpredictable. And I think Paul had mentioned that the directors had got together this morning, and we were talking about just even with our summer programs this year, we have sites that are not serving the same thing because we cannot predictably get the quantity of items that we need. And so just because something is written on a menu, it may not be what is served because we may not be able to obtain that product. When I look more closely at the send home model, which is one that I think I like, but then I think, you know, how will meals be distributed at the end of the day? Who will hand out those meals? Are we going to stagger our staff so that there's our staff that are handing out meals for students who are at school, and then you have your staff that stick around after school to hand meals out? And how would students transport those meals home if they're riding the bus, if they're walking, if they're riding their bike? I was just in on the transportation session before this, and we're talking about extending walk zones. So if you're sending a student home with, you know, 2 days worth of meal, how do they get that home? And then of course you have all of your food safety and menu considerations for your take-home meals. And we also have to plan for, you know, how these meals are going to be ordered and what point of sale method we'll be using. And again, that depends on if we're going to be operating the National School Lunch Program or the Summer Food Service Program. But if we need to be tracking eligibility and taking payments, we have to find a way to do that for our remote learners as well. And this all just gets further complicated when you think about running two models of meal service at the same time. We're going to need to figure out how we feed our online learners, our on-site learners and our remote learners at the same time. So do we have enough staff to be operating two different models at the same time? And of course, a lot of that depends on what participation looks like in both of these models. So at the beginning of the school year, a lot of it's going to be, you know, a guesstimate of how many students are going to be participating. We need to look at where food is prepared and how we're staging it. And really, to some extent, at least in my district, I feel like I'm going to need to go out to every school site and assess each school separately, because all of our buildings, you know, have different layouts and unique challenges. So, you know, we can kind of come up with a generic plan, you know, for a district, but at the same time, there's a lot of very site-specific details that we have to take into consideration. So we're still very much in the speculating stage and the brainstorming stage of all the different possible scenarios at this point. Any questions?
If I could just add something to, I talked this morning to my colleagues about equity. So we have, in our school district, we have a middle school that has 800 kids, and then we have another one that has 350. We have an elementary school that has close to 600 and another one with 200. So equity might be an issue, that we might be able to do more things at some schools because we have more flexibility than the other schools. So that could be an issue again, and equity is kind of a buzzword in the school district that we should do everything the same no matter what. So I'll throw that out there.
And, you know, another thing I will just add is that, you know, every change that we make that is different from our typical way of meal service, there's usually a financial implication that goes along with that. So if we're delivering grab and go meals, and Sandy's already touched on this, but you know, all the packaging, if we're delivering meals to the classroom, you know, how do we maintain temperatures while we are delivering those meals to the classrooms? Do we need, you know, we need carts, we need transport containers, and a lot of those items, you know, there's also a lead time in order to order those so that we have them for the beginning of the school year.
Alicia, this is Cal. Do you foresee any shortages of the things you'll need to be able to prepare those meals and to deliver them remotely? Or are we offsetting the lack of restaurants using those supplies?
Well, I know, and I'm sure my colleagues can speak to this as well, but when this initially all started, there was definitely shortages in sacks. I think just in our district alone, we used probably 5 different types of sacks in the past 3 months to do grab and go meals. Of course, anything that was individually wrapped, prepackaged, there were shortages of. I mean, at one point, our food distributor sent us an email that said, we don't have stuff to make sandwiches. Like, just flat said, like anything that you would use to make a sandwich, we don't have it right now. But I know that they're working diligently right now, and there's a lot of communication between, we're all a member of the same cooperative. There's a lot of communication from US Foods currently, that they're vendors who are trying to get a feel for, you know, what districts are wanting to use right now. But all of those items, not all of them, but a lot of them are commercially purchased items. You know, a lot of our food budget is based on how we use our USDA foods. And so we have to find ways, which we, by the way, we ordered back in last February and March before the pandemic. So we've placed those orders. We all have, you know, in my district, it's about $500,000 worth of food orders that I have already placed prior to knowing that there would be a pandemic and that I'd need to shift our entire model to stuff that could be grab and go, and that's really versatile, because we want to purchase food that can be heated up if we could, or sent home cold so that students could heat up. So I think moving forward, we all need to be thinking about using food that's really versatile, and how we can be really creative with our USDA foods, because it's such an important part of our budget.
I think we've entered the Friday afternoon quiet zone as people sit through this, so I don't see any questions. With that, we can move on to the Bob Gibson.
I don't know where the Bob Gibson came from, but thank you. Bob Gibson, I work for Tumwater School District as well as Rainier School District. So I have about just 10 points I wanted to reiterate that the other food service people have made, just as kind of a recap of the things that are important to us. So direction from the district on how they plan to operate the schools in the falls. That's the first thing we need. And are we doing different operations at different levels? We need to know about our supply chain for food and supplies, because it's been very spotty, as Alicia said. So menus change each day. That makes it tougher, because we need to communicate that to parents, what the menus are going to be when they change. We all know the kids who only want certain items. And if you show up and your menu said cheeseburgers and you had chicken nuggets, that can become an issue. We need time to order all the supplies to accomplish the feeding plans that we create and communicate to parents. It can take up to 6 weeks to get warmers, serving carts, those type of things. We need to know what kind of personal protection devices that will be required of us and allow us to work with students. We need to talk about keypads, plexiglass, student hand washing or hand sanitizing before they come through the line, face masks for staff. What are we going to need to be buying and providing for our staff? We want people to understand that budget goals may not be met. Labor costs to train them for the new processes, having overstaffed, not knowing what's happening, because we want to make sure we are ready to take care of any problems that come up. Knowing that menus are going to be very limited. In our high school, we had 14 items a day. That is going to be down to 2, 3, until we can get a handle on what we can do and what is available. Be patient with our food service people. There will be mistakes made and plans that don't work. Food staff is going to need help if we're going to be at the elementary level and feeding in classrooms. We're going to need help with students. So we'll need the help of the teachers and the aides to help us to get counts that are correct in the morning so we can prepare the right amount of food, as well as getting the kids to learn a whole new process of how they get their lunch and how are we going to make that happen. We will need help with working with our labor union groups in order to change job descriptions and look at maybe changing hours and how we're going to do that for staff. Something that came up is not allowing everyone to have access to our kitchens. Once they're sanitized, our kitchens tend to be places where the teachers put their ice cream for a classroom, or staff comes in at night when there's events happening and people use things out of the kitchen. We need to figure out how to make that more secure so people are not coming in there after we've sanitized things and having to start the day by redoing everything. And the most important part is we want to be included in the planning for the opening of the schools so we can make sure our plans complement the school opening as well as allow us to accomplish our goal of feeding kids. So that's just a recap of things we've talked about.
So I'm looking at the chat line now. Just some comments about food service delivery coming from Grace Harbor. Ongoing issue, the spring food that was dropped off the door was picked up by savvy res dogs prior to families getting it to their door or getting it at the door. So it was being used by the wrong people. And then food service suppliers are getting limited quantities on items for packaging due to limited production runs. Be flexible with your packaging, and having the ability to use multiple suppliers has been key in our ability to send out grab-and-go meals. So contrary to my earlier comments about just taking that capacity that restaurants aren't using, we're finding there is farther back a supply chain issue on the manufacturing side. So the sooner that the lunch folks, the food service folks know what your plans are, the quicker they can get those orders and to make sure they have that supply in place to do that.
Yeah, I think, Cal, we don't use the same foods as a restaurant. So all that food that was left over from restaurants that they weren't using is not CN labeled. It's not for a child nutrition program. And so we weren't able to pick up those things and reuse them because they weren't the right nutritional qualities that we use in our food service programs.
Okay. Is the packaging similar for restaurants, or do you have unique packaging as well?
No, they do some packaging things that they call, or used to call, brown box, where they would take, say, Tyson chicken legs and they'd be in a brown box, so they didn't have the labels for a commercial use, but they would have the labels for a child nutrition program. And what that does is just has the nutritional guidelines on there and how they contribute to our food requirements. But if they're, a product that's a high in sodium or doesn't meet our qualifications, we obviously can't use those. And that's, maybe we're only 5% of a restaurant supply chain, and now we needed 50% more products that they weren't able to provide. Also with Tyson and with the pork people shutting down because of COVID, that really cut down on what we could get also.
Okay. We have a question that may bleed over into the breakout room, but the question is, how do folks plan to handle breakfast in the morning at the elementary school?
Using the resources from OSPI on breakfast after the bell sounds like it might be the most feasible for an elementary school. Kids are already there. We would deliver to the classrooms. Again, each district and each school is going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
And I think that, depending on what model your district goes with, if you have half the number of students who are typically coming to school, and at our schools, we may serve 100 breakfasts, 150 breakfasts a day. If that goes down to 75, there may be a possibility that you could still do a traditional cafeteria model where students, get off the bus and they grab a grab-and-go breakfast at maybe entry points to the building or in the cafeteria, and then they take it to the classroom so that staff are not having to physically go around to every classroom. So that's another option.
In Olympia, again, at elementary schools, we have 3 CEP schools, meaning students get free breakfast and lunch. And our numbers are huge. We'll have schools over 100 kids for breakfast. So it's going to be up to administration to figure out how we can continue this and where they envision how this should happen. It might be a combination of some in the cafeteria and some in the classroom. And again, we'll just need direction and we'll make it happen. So
we've even talked about feeding people on the bus, taking food out to, because many times the kids can't get off the bus until a certain time. And if we can get them there 10 minutes early and give them a brown bag on the bus, they could be having breakfast before they even get in the classroom. But again, with social distancing, I'm not sure how that would look.
Great. That's what we have in chat line. And our last speaker today is Liz Beechler.
Before Liz start, I just want to give a big shout out to OSPI's Child Nutrition Department. They've just been wonderful through this. So one of the big things, we've received a lot of accolades for our emergency feeding programs. And one of the big reasons is because of OSPI able to get a waiver that we can set up feeding sites where we deem they're needed. Before summer feeding, typically they have to be low income, high poverty areas. And OSPI put a waiver to USDA, and they were one of 6 states that we received the waiver. And that waiver went to the 30th of June, and we were waiting on pins and needles, seeing if it would be extended. And lo and behold, lot because of OSPI's effort, Washington, the waiver was extended nationwide. So I just want to give a big shout out to OSPI and their efforts.
Hey, Paul, thank you for saying that. We want to give a shout out to all of you guys who jumped in and pivoted immediately to feed kids and make sure kids have access. So thank you. We know it's been hard, over 3 months, still a lot of unknowns. Now we're going into the next school year with a lot of unknowns. We're listening to you guys and we're paying attention and I had kind of a plan for today, but after listening to you guys, I kind of want to touch on each one of the some of the topic areas that you guys have all talked about. First off, the big question is what meal program are we going to work? Like Alicia said, right now we went from NSLP to summer feeding. There were waivers. Since Washington was the epicenter, before all these nationwide waivers came out, we actually wrote waivers. One of them was area eligibility. One was for non-congregate feeding. So we have been writing a lot of waivers for USDA to come out, and we plan to continue doing that. So we are meeting weekly with the USDA, sharing everything in which you guys are telling us up to them, sharing all the needs that we need. And if USDA is not going to give us flexibility, we are going to write waivers. So know that this is a big concern of making sure kids have access to meals, no matter whether they're on campus all day, part of the week, or not on campus at all. So first, I kind of want to talk about the waivers in which we're looking at. So right now, one of the waivers is the meal service time waiver. So that meal service time waiver is what allowed the grab and go meals, that allowed the multiple day meals, that allowed the breakfast and lunch at the same time. So that's a big waiver for us. I kind of want to talk on the 2 programs. What do we run at NSLP? Do we run summer? Do we run both at the same time? Currently, how legislation is written to allow summer programs is if it's during an unanticipated school closure or between the summer months when school is closed. So since we are planning on reopening, we are looking at the NSLP, but asking for flexibility around how NSLP is ran. The USDA may come out and say it's okay to do summer, but of course, then that means that we're going to have to look at more waivers towards non-congregate feeding again, meal service times, area eligibility, all those things that come with the summer feeding program. We have been advocating to them that, you know, it would be easiest for our school districts if they could run one program. There's different meal pattern requirements for each program. So we understand the difficulty of running two. Another waiver we are looking at is the OVS waiver for high school, because we know that it's going to be incredibly difficult. Most of the, you know, kids will not be necessarily going through a line. There won't be multiple choices. That we may have to go to a situation where there's a bag and they're served and all the components are met. Potable water, it's another thing I didn't hear any of you guys bring up, but we know that a lot of schools have water fountains that are going to be shut down, and that's what's meeting the potable water requirement. So we're looking at writing a waiver for that. Another one we're looking at is the vegetable subgroups. It's real easy to meet your certain amount of components per age group, but those veggie subgroups sometimes come with the salad bar. And we know that salad bars are probably not going to be happening because of the Department of Health and CDC recommendations. So right now, those are the 4 biggest waivers that we're looking at to make sure that you guys can make your meal service work within the regulations and the things that need to be. I do want to talk a little bit about what Sandy mentioned about breakfast in the classroom for, or breakfast, I guess, lunch in the classroom. There is a school district in Washington State that is currently doing that for their elementary schools. He does sit on OSPI's Food and Nutrition Task Force, and that's Longview School District. So we are working with him to put together some best practices around lunch in the classroom. But like Sandy said, there's so many considerations, no school districts alike. There could be elevators, stairs, weather. So we are aware of that. That might be a model that fits, you know, elementary schools. That might make the most sense because maybe that's where kids are going to be on campus every day. Like all of you guys have said, costs, this is going to have a huge financial impact. We know that equipment needs are going to be different. We know staffing needs are going to be different. You may need cold holding and hot holding. You definitely are going to have to buy PPEs and change food safety practices and purchasing sanitation supplies. And this is going to affect procurement. This is going to affect USDA foods and how menu planning. And we're talking about that with the USDA, and we're talking about that internally within OSPI of what are the needs, how can we help you, what kind of resources can we give you guys. I know I chimed in a little bit. I haven't talked a lot about this, but OSPI does have a food and nutrition task force. There's several members, several food service directors on that across the state. We also have the Nursing Association, members from the union, members from transportation, and several members from Washington Department of Health who's working with us around the recommendations. And one of the big things that came out of that is being able to do contact tracing. So the Department of Health is recommending staggering groups. They're putting kids in groups. So if they're using the cafeteria, they have them sit with their class group, ensure the physical distancing, having certain employees working at certain times to kind of limit, so not everyone's exposed to everyone at the same time. Talking about, and I think someone brought up in the chat, when are teachers going to get a break if there's something, if kids are eating in the classroom? That's a really good question, and it's a question that we've brought up. There's going to be a lot of coordination between the administration, food service staff, and I think even Bob mentioned this, there's definitely going to need to be a lot more coordination than there has been, and food service needs to be part of the conversation. And I think Sandy mentioned participation. Yes, this is a huge concern. If kids aren't on campus, how are they going to participate? And we're aware of that, and we're committed to helping provide resources and making sure kids have access to school meals, especially those remote learners. So what can happen if they're never coming to campus? How do we get them fed when we know that there's a huge need for these kids to have access for meals? For a lot of kids, school meals are the only meals they get during the day. And if that's taken away, that's going to have a huge impact on also their schoolwork. How are they going to succeed in learning if they're hungry? I think Paul talked about, you know, in the past they've used a lot of salad bars in school gardens, and how is that going to change? You know, that's a hard one. We've heard school districts say to us that they're going to repurpose some of the equipment they have. They can use salad bars as a grab and go kiosk instead of maybe the actual salad bar. So looking at, you know, we're talking about cost, but looking at the different types of equipment that you already have that you can use. I like how Paul said, keep it simple. I'm going to share that out. The KISS method. The Department of Health has also talked a little bit, and I think Paul talked about pre-ordering and online ordering and mobile ordering, and putting systems into place so that it limits the contact between food service staff and the student, or lessens the amount of people that need to be to service the meals. Recognizing some kids don't have access to the internet, so there needs to be other types of or cell phones, or there needs to be other processes in place to make sure all kids, despite their income level, have access to meals and access to ordering meals. And we know there's going to be, there's challenges, and we're talking about them. Let's see. And Alicia, I wanted to say thank you. You guys did, for 3 months, you're used to serving meals. You guys changed in an instant, and we recognize that, and we thank you. What a lot of people don't know is Washington State had one of the highest amount of meal sites open that pivoted. I mean, we had 292 school districts with almost 1,000 sites open to feed kids. We know that Washington State is committed to doing this. Not all states had school districts open to do emergency feeding. So thanks for mentioning, and you guys pivoted and just did it. We didn't have a lot to tell you. USDA caught up. And so they're probably going to have to catch up again. But you did talk a lot about waivers. We are, like I said before, we're focusing on those 4, paying attention to what you guys say to see what else we may need. I know Bob talked a lot about supply chain, changing menus daily based on what you may need. You know, my advice to that would be document to make sure you meet meal pattern on your production records. Having limited menus at this point in time, and having patience, I like that. I think we all need to focus on those kinds of things. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you guys want to go into, we all want to go into breakout sessions, but I want to thank you for what you're doing. If you have any specific questions, please send them in to your program specialist. I actually have Lisa Jekyll, who's here to support you guys on the line. If she, Lisa, I don't know if you want to say hi or anything, but she's here to help you, and she can send questions up to us so we can send them to the USDA. I also do want to say that we are taking, you know, we're knowing we're going to have to change our trainings. We're knowing we're going to have to provide additional resources. We have been meeting weekly and having weekly webinars since this happened mid-March. I've been on WASBO calls, so you may have seen me, or not actually, I don't think I turned my camera on. You may have heard me on WASBO calls. We are planning on the week of August 3rd to start weekly webinars, just similar as we've been doing now, so that we can help you guys as guidance comes in, share information out. And we always have our CNS weekly highlights. So I guess that's all I have for now. Lisa, did you want to say anything?
Liz, thank you so much. I think that you addressed everything beautifully. And again, I just want to say thank you to all of our food service directors. You guys have done an amazing job, and it is, we stand in awe of you. It's an honor to support you, and we encourage your questions, because your questions, whether or not I currently have an answer, if I don't have an answer, it pushes and it helps drive us creating solutions for you and supports for you. So as Liz said, reach out to us. We are happy to help. And you know, one thing that I've learned this week or in the past couple of weeks, is that we need to plan for all models. And that's really difficult to be thinking about. How do we plan for all of the models that you guys have been discussing? Because we don't know until, as you guys have already said, until the education comes out and says, this is how we're going to operate. And then each district is going to be operating differently. You guys are your best resources, and we get to help funnel and direct it. My team, our team, we only have a lot more answers because we support all of you. And so we get multiple questions and we get to have multiple answers. So thank you for all that you do, and keep us funneled in, because we want to be a part of the solution.
Thanks, Lisa.
Great. I'm just looking at the chat line. The one comment I want to share out, in case you haven't seen it, is we have Patricia Barrett from the ESD 113 Early Learning Program, who's advocating that to make sure you can get your supplies, you might want to work with a couple different suppliers. So if somebody falls back or is unable to deliver, you have a backup chance to get things. So with that, just one last check on the chat line. I don't see anything more. So it's time for breakout rooms. We're at 3:30. I don't think anybody wants to stay particularly late. If we can do maybe a 15-minute breakout, just give you a chance to talk amongst yourself, ask questions, initiate conversations, be curious, learn from each other. What we ask is that we have a spokesperson from each group just to share out a theme of something you've discussed. Please pay attention to your room numbers, because we'll go by room number. We've had a little problem earlier for those who are starting late. So with that, Charlotte, we're ready to send them out into the breakout rooms?
We are all set. We'll see you in about 15 minutes.
Great. 4:70, okay. So for the folks who are here for the first part, you know the drill. We want to know, what did you learn? Is that the thing that's on the screen? We have two screens.
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to try numerically? How many groups do we have, Shaba? Do we have 10, 11?
We had 9 total.
Okay, so let's start from the top. Group 9. Do you have somebody you picked on to report out? And what would you like to share with us?
Yes, they did. The Sherry from Cosmopolis.
Okay.
The big thing was the concern about how do we help cover lunch breaks for staff if kids are being required to eat in the classroom, and how do we monitor all those classrooms while we're trying to relieve staff?
Okay, it's a big issue.
I'm sorry, say it again?
That's a big issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Breakout group 8.
Okay, does anybody want to report out, or should I? Okay, I will.
Okay.
So it's kind of really interesting from being from the food service perspective, what was being discussed. So supervision was a big, was discussed at mealtime. Many districts, like I said, budget cuts, paraeducators getting cut. So it's a big issue, supervision piece. Staggered starts, just listening about that and what the planning has to go into that. You know, siblings, you have staggered starts, you know, how are you going to accommodate that? So perhaps the siblings, different grades, but are coming to school on the same days. And how do schools coordinate that? So I thought that was the family grouping thing was very, very interesting. It was good. We had a principal in our group and just mentioning their concerns about maybe having more lunch periods to make sure they can get the social distancing and being compliant. And probably looking at different sites in a cafeteria or a classroom, perhaps a gymnasium, which offers more spacing. So those were some of the issues, and I know I probably missed a few. So if anybody wants to add something, please do.
Also from Group 8, large consideration going forward is we need to wait until we have more feedback from our families and communities on what the best practice would be going forward, as well as getting the school logistics schedule down before transportation and nutrition services can find out what provisions of services they can provide.
Okay. Group 7.
We kind of just had some of the same concerns about staffing during lunch times, and talked a little bit about availability of some products that some people didn't have access to partway through the feeding, or through the COVID. It's Friday, isn't it?
Okay. Anything else? Group 6.
I'm not sure. I think we were 6, but I think we lost most people. There was really very little discussion.
Okay. Group 5. Nothing from Group 5?
I was with Group 5. We talked, we generalized about a few subjects. One of them is I was talking about where to feed the kids and keep the social distancing. Some of the other members of the group talked about waiting to hear what the administration's going to choose for our, what do you call it? Our instruction. Then we'll build our plan around them. And I think we all agreed at the end that we're going to build plan A, B, and C, and have 3 hasty plans ready to go. And we'll maneuver as we come across roadblocks. But I think it was just a good chat, talking about some important stuff along those lines.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Group 4. Group 4. Okay. Group 3.
Yeah, this is Leanne Parker from Adna School District. We had a really good conversation. We were lucky enough to have Lisa Jekyll in our group, and we had talked about different ways of delivering the meals, and she had mentioned grab and go models from other districts. And before I got a chance to go back to that and ask her if she could push some of those examples out to districts, we went back into this full group. So that was really good. She also had another really good suggestion that as we go and we have to build our SOPs to sanitize our kitchens, sanitize our classrooms, how we're going to execute kids from point A, B, C, to kind of reach out to other districts and see which portions of that plan that they already have in place and really use our skills in collaborating.
Good. Group 2.
This is Alex Apostle from Shelton. I think that we talked about a number of things, but I believe that reciprocal tolerance, forgiveness, and empathy is going to be crucial as we move forward, regardless of the plan. Getting along with each other, looking for the strengths in one another, be accepting when everything doesn't work exactly as planned. I think that will move the system and our planning a long ways.
It's good advice. And our last group, Group 1.
So this was us, and we didn't have a lot of, Kim, please augment if I leave something out, but we didn't have a lot of discussions or learned a lot of things because not very many of us have decided on what our schedule looks like. So the planning of meals and what we're going to do logistically, we haven't gotten very, very far down that road.
Okay. So are there any questions you have for our panelists before we move to adjournment here? Looking what's in the chat. Okay, having nothing, then let's move forward. Too many things open. So we've had about 90 minutes today on two different topics. We've had the transportation piece and the food service. And I think the message I heard very clearly is both program areas really very simply are just looking for direction. And they are going to do whatever they need to do to serve the kids and to serve the district. And that's such a wonderful quality. And what I was pleased with was the group, I don't know what group number was, but Scott, that they talked about the different modes of how they will be serving, that they're going to pre-plan different ideas. And I think that's one piece that didn't come out today is as we go into this next year, we may start in September, all kids in school, A, B schedule, whatever it may be. But the road ahead, we don't know. We're living through a time period that we've never experienced in our lifetime. We don't have a good model to go with. I keep wondering whether by Christmas time, we'll be back in a lockdown situation. So throughout the year, you may be doing food service program or you may be doing transportation differently and have to pivot over a weekend or overnight as you change from what there. So I appreciate Scott's comment, his group's comment about having those plans available and pivoting to the one that works at the right time during the school year. So thank you for that. In closure, I want to thank first all of our speakers and our panelists today. They've given their time to be here and they've added to our conversation. I think we're living in interesting times. We are being pushed out earlier than a lot of the society because everybody understands that without schools opening, the economy can't open. And that's a major thing. They're creating a different rule set for schools. It's not coming out of the governor's office, it's been coming out of OSPI. It's specific to schools and it will change as we go through. We know 2 weeks ago, 6 foot distancing was almost ironclad. And now we're hearing 6 foot distance on busing may not be so important, but we're looking at it in the classroom still. We are going to be facing changing conditions throughout the year. One of the pieces I want to always pay attention to is we have factual information coming from CDC or Department of Health or even OSPI and the guidance there. But we're also dealing with a media that is just striving to make sure they have an article every day on this issue. And they're regularly presenting non-authority information that our families are embracing and think is fact and truth. And I always refer to as a little bit of theater, because when we deal with the safety measures we have to do, as provided by CDC or other authoritative agencies, those are what we have to do. But we also have to be mindful of our communities and what their expectations are. And sometimes we have to do things that really don't fall under safety measures, but it's a theater around feeling safer that our communities can expect us to do. And that can be hard to do. I'm confident that as we go through this time, it's going to be one of the most challenging years of all of your careers. It's going to be a good year to look back on and not the funnest one to live through. The breakout rooms today and this week were intended to start conversations between districts and due to some cross-pollination of ideas. Because in the end, we're stronger, we're smarter, and we're better when we share and we work together. And I know every one of you will do your best. And after today, I'm convinced some of you are going to go way above and beyond simply to take care of the kids and the communities. And I want to thank you for the gift of your time and your attention today in these sessions. So with that, we are adjourned, and I hope you all have some great weekend plans to do something fun and have a few minutes of respite from the very difficult jobs you're doing right now.
Thank you, Cal.
Thanks, Cal.
Thank you, Cal.
Thanks, Cal.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.